All right, we are up.
All right, guys. Have you ever just wanted a place where you could just get your questions answered? You have a tournament, you go out and fish the tournament. It was a cold front come through. Everything that you found in practice evaporated. If you're like me, you might not even have to have a cold front come through. You go, you fish the tournament, you do X, Y, and Z, just like you did in practice. You go back in the tournament, and it never works out like what you thought. And you want to just ask somebody, you just want to bounce ideas off of someone else to understand, to help you get an understanding of what happened, what you should have did, where you should have went, how long should I have stayed, should I have went somewhere else. That's what we're doing tonight in the Straight Up Fishing app. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on TikTok, you need to sign up and get inside of the app. What we're about to do now is I have a portion inside of the community app that's called Ask BLAT, where people with inside the app can submit questions about their fishing trips, about their love life, about how they cut their grass, how about they change their oil in their 2004 GMC 1500 two-wheel drive with the 4600 in it. I don't even know if that's a thing. But that's what we're going to do tonight. There's some really, really good topics that came up in the Ask BLAT section of the app this week that I think are could be just podcasts in and of themselves. Just these questions would be great podcast questions just alone. So you want to hang in there. Now, within the last couple of weeks, we've had quite a few new members within inside the app. So if you're new to the app, first of all, say hello in the chat. Say something. Say hi. I'll make you stand up like they do in church. You know how they have new members meeting when you're in church? If there's any guests, we would like you to just stand. We have a gift for you. Stay to the live to the end of this live session. I have something special to give you guys that I promise you don't want to miss. So let's jump right into it. The questions. You can submit a question on Facebook. You can submit a question on TikTok, but I'm probably not going to get to it. You know why? Because this is for the app members. Okay. All right. Let's jump into the first question that we have tonight. Let me get to my. I did a screenshot on all of them so I could keep up with it a little bit easier. The first one is from Tron Foster. Tron is one of the OG members. He's been with the app since we started. Tron says, "Can participants in the SUF Classic on Russell fish from another competitor's boat with them while competing in the championship?" So, if you're watching from anywhere besides the app, you probably don't know. But we're having our straight up fishing championship tournament at Lake Russell at Calhoun Falls State Park, March 27th through March 30th. That's what Tron is asking about. To give you a little bit of context about what's going on, March 27th through March 30th, you're saying you're going to have a 4-day tournament? What's going on here? No, it's not going to be a 4-day tournament, but what we are doing, we are hosting a 4-day fishing retreat. So if you're looking for something to do for your adult spring break, if you're just wanting to get away from the hustle and bustle of reality and going to practice and doing this and doing that, and you just always wanted 3 or 4 days just to focus on fishing, you need to be at this retreat. March 27th, March 28th, we're just going to focus on fishing. That's it. We'll meet at a spot in the morning, just kind of come up with a game plan, talk about what's going on the lake. Of course, I've been out there a couple times. By the time you get out there, I'll give you a brief idea of what's going on Lake Russell, give you a good idea of some areas you could try, some baits that you could try, and we'll go out and fish. And we'll come back in the afternoon and evening and just kind of chop it up and see what worked for different people. And then again, just answer your questions if you have any from that day of fishing. We're going to do that on Thursday and Friday. Then on Saturday, like I've always done at these championship events, I'm going to actually be hosting a seminar where basically we do workshops about different techniques, gear, all day long. That's what we do on that Saturday. And then Sunday, we have a championship tournament for the people that fish my online tournaments in 2024. We will crown the champion. So, what Tron is asking is during that tournament, can he fish with somebody else so he can get out on the lake that's in the tournament? And the answer is yes, Tron, you can. So, if you're in the tournament, if you fish the straight up fishing classes in 2024, You qualify for a classic. Maybe you qualified fishing from a kayak or fishing from the shore, and you want to get out on Lake Russell. Yes, you can fish with another competitor. It just has to be another competitor in the tournament. You can't hire Billy Wall Bill to come and be your guide for Lake Russell so you can win the tournament. No, that's not how that's going to work. But yes, you can. You can fish with another competitor in the tournament. Now, I will say this: for the time period that we're going to Lake Russell, listen to this. The time that we're going to Lake Russell, being that we're hosting the tournament out of Calhoun Falls State Park. That park is a great place to shoreline fish. I took my kids down there last spring, almost the same week, and we fished just in Calhoun Falls State Park. We never left. We never left the park for 4 days. We fished right around there. So I would highly suggest if you're a shoreline fisherman, this tournament, there is not going to be a better tournament for you to fish. If you're a kayak fisherman, you can camp. There's lodging there at Calhoun Falls State Park. There's lodging at Russell State Park on the Georgia side. There's this is the place where you can just get away and feel like you're in a different part of the earth, because there's nothing down there to do but fishing. But it's fun at the same time because the fish are going to be biting. So great place to shoreline. The state park is all public water, obviously public shoreline. We got public water, and then you got private shoreline. I'm talking about there's miles and miles and miles of water that you can walk around the bank, and the fish are going to be towards the bank that time of the year. So great place for you to come fish. Boaters, kayakers, shoreline fishermen. I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot of fun. You can fish with somebody else. If you're inside the app, we do have a round table where you can meet up with people within the app. Let's just say Kevin's coming from Wisconsin. He's like, man, I don't want to drag my boat from Wisconsin. Or if you're coming from California, you don't want to drag your boat to California for a few days of fishing. Fly down here, meet up with somebody in the app, meet up with a couple people, fish with one guy on Thursday, fish with another guy on Friday. It's a perfect opportunity for you to get out and experience something that's different than what you're used to fishing and have a good time and meet some more people. So I'm sure there's plenty of people in the app that are already starting to make arrangements to fish with each other. So that's why we wanted to make it our retreat this year, so you guys can meet, fish with other people. And if you're coming from a long way, it'll be worth it. I promise you it will be worth it. It's always worth it just for the 2 days that we usually have. But adding another extra 2 days will give you time to actually soak in the area. Like get settled in, fish, and have a good time. So I'm looking forward to it. That was a great question, Tron. Thanks for asking that one. This one, let's go to the next one here. Let's see. This one's from Caleb Kelly. Caleb Kelly says, SMH, what rod are you using as your setup when you're fishing the SMH worm now? Well, I'm using my signature rod. So I've been developing a signature rod this is not it, with Level. This is one of their rods now. My signature rod the prototype is in my boat, but I'm actually developing a signature line of rods for Level fishing for 2025 and beyond. It is pretty much, I'll be honest with you. I know y'all I'm going to tell you a secret. I gave them my current signature rod and I said, copy this and then put a cork handle on it and give me 2 keepers. I upgraded a rod that I already had. I mean, that rod was perfect. My signature series is perfect. It's everything that I ever wanted in a spinning rod. There was 2 upgrades that I wanted to add to the one that I'm doing with Level. One of those upgrades was having 2 keepers on the rod. A keeper above the reel seat and a keeper below the reel. The reason for that is when you put your rods in a rod box, if I've got 15 rods, I'm going to take this rod right here. If I've got 15 rods in my rod box and every single one of my treble hooks is hooked right here, every single one of my drop shots is hooked right here, then what happens is they tangle a bunch. So what I did with these, I put a keeper up here above the reel seat, and I put a keeper down here. That way I can hook one here and I can hook one there. I can alternate where my baits are hooked so they don't tangle as much when you're, even if you're a co-angler, you got your rods, how since all the baits are in the same location, a lot of times they tangle a bunch. They won't do that with my signature rods. My claim to fame is my signature rods they tangle 25% less. So I did that, and then I changed to a cork handle instead of the EVA foam. I'm sick of EVA. And what I started noticing is that actually cork has more grip, especially during cold weather, and especially if you got a lot of fish slime. I'll do some saltwater fishing, and those saltwater species are very slimy. And when you grab one and you put your hands back on your reel, that cork's it soaks into that cork, and it's just I don't like it. So I decided to go with cork. Second reason I decided to go with cork is because I think it looks good. It looks high end to me. It looks like when I look at a cork rod now, I'm like, oh, look at that thing over there with them stilettos on, them yoga pants. Ow, let me just bite you how good you look. I'm not supposed to say that, Emma. That was bad. I'm going to get canceled trying to make videos. Oh, God. All right. So, yeah, Caleb, still using my signature series. The signature series that I'm designing is a carbon upgrade, a carbon copy upgrade. This one is from Mark Stinson. Mark Stinson says, I know you have a lot going on at this moment, but what do you think about a mystery box for your members with some Z-Man products or different types of fishing gear and equipment for a monthly fee? Like a SUF mystery box. That's a great idea, Mark. I kind of do that already. This past month, when I took a couple app members out. I'm not sure if you remember. I took a couple app members out. I took Tim Dotson. I took Jaden Potter. Took Christian Destiny. All three of those trips, we caught all of our fish on like 2 baits. I put all of the equipment that I used in those trips in a bundle, and I put it on shopblat.com. So that's what I would do. I'm going to take Tom. I need to talk about that because I can't say Tom's last name. We're going to take another app member out this month. I'm hoping in February we'll have to get with Tom. Tom's from Ohio, so it may take a little while. It may take some organization to get him down here. But I'm going to take Tom fishing, and those baits that we use for the next couple SUF trips, yeah, I'll put those in a bundle, and they'll be available for you. Because it just makes sense. I'm talking about these baits. We're catching the fish about these baits. I'm showing you the best rods, reel, line, etc. And then I put them in a bundle with all the line, the rods, the reels. I then put the rods, the lines, the baits, the colors, the jig heads, all in a bundle on my website. I'll put that. Matter of fact, I'll try to post it for you now. It's on shopblat.com.
Is that under the kits section?
Yep, it's under kits. I posted it in the community section, and none of y'all suckers bought them. Everybody asked me about them, and then nobody bought them. Mikey, you think is it too hard to put those in the comment section of wherever we're streaming right now? I think it's under kits. I think it's called like Deepwater Finesse Kit or something.
Yeah, I can grab that. Let me see if I can find it.
That's Drop Kickers Kit. There's 2 of them. There's a 2.75 and there's a 3.5. It's got the line. It's got the line that I was using, the colors. I'm gonna post this right now, Tom, in the community section. I may even be able to post it in the chat while we're talking. But I get what you're saying. Shopblat.com. If you're in the app, you have a discount code too. For everybody else that's in the app, you can go ahead and post that in the chat what our discount code is. I'm posting it right now if I can get it to paste.
All right, so it's the 2 drop kickers.
Yep, those 2 kits right there.
All right.
If you're on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, you can get access to those kits too. Just the people in the app get a discount. Well, I'll make it more of a thing moving forward, Tom, or Mark, I'm sorry. I'll make it more of a thing. We usually send out an email. You get an email about this too. Like this month, we talked about crankbaits. I'll send you a few crankbaits. We'll make a crankbait bundle. In January, we pretty much talked about shallow crankbaits and lipless crankbaits. I'll make a bundle for that as well and send it to you. I'm posting this in the community section right now. If y'all looking for it, yonder she is. Oh Lord, of course, notifications. Don't you hate when notifications get in the way when you're trying to post something? Isn't that the worst? You go to post something and then a notification pops up and now you're looking at Harry Sue's live on Instagram. I don't want to watch your live. Okay. So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I'll make sure to make that more of a thing moving forward, talking about the kits, the baits that we use, and make those available to you.
I see Matthew Dennis has one problem that I don't think we can remedy on any of the platforms. He said my wife put me on buying fishing stuff restrictions.
Oh, so, Matthew, man.
Yeah.
Matthew, you gotta. I don't know what to tell you, man. you got problems. You got other problems. Fishing lures ain't your problems. If she's putting you on restrictions, you got other problems, my guy. And it ain't fishing lures. That's for sure. Don't drag me into these Marshall problems. Is that how you say it? Is it Marshall or marital? Don't drag me into your marital problem, my guy. I got enough of them my own self. All right, let's jump to the next question. Kevin Skavinsky. I like saying that name, Kevin Skavinsky. Kevin's a long-time member of the app since the beginning. He says, I'll have the Mississippi River coming up this year. What gear are you using for a swim jig? All right, I love throwing a swim jig on the Mississippi River. It's so much fun. So I use a Dirty Jigs swim jig. I think it has the best hook for a swim jig. And then I take the Z-Man Helicross for a trailer. Black and blue is the only one that I even tie on. And I use a California Craw Helicross on the back. Let's go chop chop. I ain't got nothing else to say. 30 or 50 pound test braid. Why not use 50, I guess, because it's not like you need to get a bunch of distance. Now, the rod, I am very particular about my rod with the swim jig. It's so weird. With the swim jig, you need a rod, you need a little bit of tip, because otherwise you're like a short combat fish. It's not like you're making long casts with it, at least the context in which I fish the swim jig. It's not like I'm bombing a cast out there, 80 feet. It's pretty, 20 foot, 30 foot, 50 foot at most. And so if you get a rod that's too stiff, the problem with that is when you go to set the hook, you create slack in between you and the fish. With that braid, there's nothing to give. You pull it like a 2.5, 3 pounder. You set the hook, you're moving 5, 10, 15 foot at a time. That's not good. We don't want to move that fish when we set the hook 15 foot. We want to just, like when you set the hook, you just want to, you don't want to move that fish 15 foot because all you're doing is creating slack between you and the fish, and that's how they get off, especially with braid. So you need a little bit of, it's just the best way that I describe what I want my rod to do. You want a little bit of, I know y'all get tired of me doing this. It's just the best way I know to describe it. Instead of saying, you want a parabolic beam, like, bro, screw everybody that's saying parabolic. What is that? What are y'all talking about? You're not any smarter about saying parabolic. Just say it like it is. You want a rod with a little bit of, it's just like that rod, like this rod right here, it has a lot of, you know what I mean? It doesn't go, you don't want that. You want a little bit of in it. Because if you don't, you're just pulling the fish too much. You just want that hook to just go in and you'll be able to turn the fish around again, coming to you with your reel and the braid. Something's got to give. You can't have braid, a stiff rod, and manly hands like what I got. Somebody's got to give. Something's going to have to stretch at some point. You want your rod to do that for you. So 7'2", 7'3" at the max is what I think for swimming a jig. 7'2", 7'3", medium heavy. Sometimes, it depends on the rod manufacturer too. Everybody's medium heavy is not the same medium heavy. Everybody's fast is not the same fast. Everybody's extra fast is not the same extra fast. There's no universal standard for rod powers, tapers, actions. People are just making rods and they're putting labels on them according to what they feel and think. I'm gonna say that again. When it comes to rod actions, powers, tapers, all this stuff, all people are just putting M's on them, calling them fast, just according to what they think. There's no universal standard. There's nothing out there that says a medium heavy has to be this. It's just according to what you feel and think, and you call it that. So be very careful about saying, well, I would never use a yaga because it's to this. Well, have you even felt the rod, Henry? Henry, unless you felt that rod for yourself, you don't know what you're talking about. You have to pick up the rod, feel it, see what it casts, what the taper feels like in your hands. So something not too stiff, but yet you still need to be able to turn that fish around. The one that I think I would use in the level lineup, I know, Kevin, I know you have a few level rods now. They're 7.3. Their 7.3 medium heavy is a good rod for a swim jig. I would use that. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but if I'm going to throw a swim jig, it's going to be that one. That's what I would use. Good question. I love talking about that kind of stuff. I can be a gear nerd. I don't use a lot of different actions and powers and rods. I have like 4 actions and powers, and I use them for everything. Like those 4 will work for several different things. All right, let's see. Oh, this is another one from Kevin. Kevin with the good questions tonight. Oh, this is a good one, Kevin. This is the one. This is the one I definitely want to. We're gonna put a stake in this one for a little bit and stay here for a minute. Kevin's asking about a repower. He's gonna repower his boat. I didn't get to fish with Kevin out of his boat, but I definitely I remember seeing him last year at the Classic in Georgia. I'm looking to repower this year. A little background, I have a Mercury 125 two-stroke on a Crestliner Sportfish 1850. For you guys down south, it's sort of like a multi-species boat with the windshield. It's 18 and a half footer. It says total weight's around 2,300 pounds. Top speed is currently 40, 38-gallon fuel tank, which is very important. Fish everything from small lakes and rivers to the Great Lakes. Question is, can I get away with a new 150? Hey, Kevin, make sure you get with me before you buy an engine. I got a couple to sell this year. You ain't going to get them nowhere cheaper than I got them. So get with me. I got you that SUF hookup. Matter of fact, anybody looking for an engine this year, contact your boy. Reach out. DM me. Come on down. Send me a telegram. I got a couple engines to sell for you. Question is, can I get away with the 150, or is it worth it to go 175 or 200? Will I have buyer's remorse if I buy 150? I won't be able to increase top end speed, but also maintain fuel economy. What are your thoughts? Love the question. Trust me on this, Kevin. If your boat has a max horsepower of 200, by all means necessary, unless the sky is falling, unless the economy is turning inside out, unless I don't know, Putin comes to get us and we join with Russia, give it 200. Always, always, always max out your horsepower. Don't worry about the fuel economy. A smaller engine is going to work harder, and a smaller engine does not equal less fuel or more fuel economy. The 150 will burn more gas than the 200 because it's going to be working harder. How you're running 40 miles an hour with your 125, that 150 that you're going to get is probably going to be about equal to your 125 power, the torque that you have there. It's not going to be faster. You're probably with a 154 stroke. I have 2 of them. I have 2 154 strokes Pro XS. You're going to be running about 40 miles an hour. and you're going to be wide open at 40 miles an hour. When you get that 200, you're going to be running quarter throttle, 40 miles an hour. It's a big difference between a V6 4-stroke and the 4-cylinder 150. Huge difference. So I would encourage you. You have the boat. The boat is clearly, obviously, very discreetly rated for 200. Get the 200. Get the 200 horsepower. Now, if there's some reason that you should get a 150, like there's a lake that you want to fish and it's rated for 150 or less, or if it's barring if there's anything like that, don't get the 150. Just get the 200, man. There's not enough price difference. It might be $2,500. I can't remember. I bought several of both of them. My Bay Boat has a 200 V6, and there's a 200 V8 too. But I have a 200 V6 on my Bay Boat, and I have a 150 on my other Bay Boat. I got two Bay Boats. I need to sell one Bay Boat. Anybody looking for a Bay Boat? I got a 22-footer, 2025 model, ready to go. Anyway, I'm trying to sell too many things tonight. But seriously, 200. Get the 200. Don't get the 175. Don't get the 123. Don't 200 horsepower, Kevin. If I catch you running around here with a 150, unless you got it for like half price, get the 200.
Brian,
sir.
I will. I'll throw out having worked at a boat dealership. Yeah, if it's rated, it's getting the max rating on the. We wouldn't be able to sell if it's rated for 200. We put a 200 on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the boat sits there for like 2 seasons because nobody wants to buy it. So something to consider even for reselling. So you can justify the math.
Yeah. Just get it. It's not enough price difference. You're gonna lose it trying to save the money in the 150. Like I said, barring that you don't just find like a 150 for $5,500, or which $9,000, $10,000, then go get the 150. But if it's rated for 200, get the 200. It is a little different. Like Michael, now his boat's a multi-species. I would say it probably doesn't matter quite as much on the multi-species as it does a bass boat. A bass boat, if you mess around and get like a 19-footer with a 150, get ready to set on that for the rest of your life. You ain't gonna never sell that. But a multi-species, like my Bay Boat, my older Bay Boat is a 22-footer with a 150. I could sell it with a 150. I wouldn't dare try it with a bass boat. Wouldn't dare try it. It's the Pathfinder I have is rated for a 200, but I put a 150 on it. That was more like that was a strategic thing. It was about weight. I don't really go that fast in it. I could justify it on that boat, but when I repower it the next time, I'm gonna put a 200 on it for sure. So yeah, Kevin, get the 200. Did I say get the 200 yet? Get the 200. Let's see what we got next. Look at this. Another engine question. If you're watching on TikTok, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, let me tell you, these boat questions, the reason they're coming in is because within the app for the last for January, we've been doing building your dream boat workshops here within the app. And so we did 2 workshops already. We did a workshop just talking about the best accessories and the best build kits for John boats. So if you have a John boat and you want to turn that thing into your dream John boat, you want to max it out, you want to make it something that you really enjoy fishing about. I had a guy from Tiny Boat Nation come in and talk about, and you can still view this live session on the app, talk about the best things that you could buy for a John boat. That's what we did. And then we also had somebody come in and talk about bass boats. Let's just say you got a 20-year-old bass boat. You don't want to spend $100,000 on a bass boat. You don't want to spend $140,000. You don't want to spend $70,000. You got $20,000. You got $10,000, and you want a boat that you can enjoy fishing out of. We had a workshop to tell you how to get the most out of that $10,000, how to get the most out of that $20,000. I promise you, you can get a boat that you enjoy fishing out of for those prices. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't get the boat of your dreams without spending that kind of money. You can get, listen, in the last 30 years, I talked about this at a boat show this past weekend. When it comes to boat building, in the last 30 might be, let's say 20, 25. Yeah, it's about 30 years. Something happened about 97, 98. If you got anything 97, 98 and newer, there hasn't been a lot of change in boat building since then. Make sure you hear what I said. In boat building, I didn't say engine building, but there's not a lot of new things that have happened in boat building since the late 90s, around the 25 to 30 year mark. So if you can get a boat that's 97, 98, 99 and newer, you pretty much got the same thing that everybody else has got. Even if you go back a little bit further, 1990, 92, 93, 94, the biggest thing you're going to notice in those boats in the early 90s is the deck layout is a little different. The deck is going to be shorter. You're probably going to have a live well in the middle. You're probably going to have this weird, awkward space in front of the console, this like a gap. And you're like, what is this gap in between my deck and my console? That's where we used to put a tackle box. And by tackle box, I mean a box that we had all of our fishing tackle in the early 90s. So those things can still be, you can still bring them up to par, but it costs a little bit more money. You can always extend the decks. A lot of people have done stuff like that, but you probably don't want to have to do that. From 98 all the way to current, it's the same basic layout. There's a tackle storage in the center. There's a rod locker on the left, rod locker on the right. And then your deck goes all the way back to your console. And there's a cooler somewhere in the floor in the middle. 2 compartments behind each seat and a battery compartment in the back. That's the basic live well in the center of the back. That's the basic layout of every boat, every manufacturer from 1998 to current. So you're getting pretty much the same thing. When it comes to construction, pretty much the same thing. Most of those boats from the 2000 to now are not going to have any wood in them. When you start getting early 90s back, you might have a little bit of wood in those boats. So you don't have to buy a new boat. You can buy a 30-year-old boat and bring it right up to current with new electronics, wiring, and repower. You have the same thing everybody else has got. Okay, to the question from Alex Tivis. Alex Tivis says he's curious about how many of us in the app are still running 2-stroke outboards. After watching the last boat segment with B-Lat and Paul, it got me thinking about it. They both have way more water time in the boat than I do. With that, I believe 2-strokes are still good, reliable motors on average. But you have to be aware of a few things and wanted to share them. I come from a mechanic side of things. Lots of 2-strokes here in between snowmobiles and boats. Wondering if sharing a few tips and things to look for, notice, buying, fixing, or maintenance. So that was the reason I wanted to talk about this one, because this is just a good topic to discuss. Alex is talking about some of the advantages and disadvantages of 2-stroke outboards. I don't have any 2-stroke outboards anymore. I don't miss them. Not one, nothing about it. I don't miss them. I never thought we would go to a point where outboards are as reliable as they are today. Listen, I'm sponsored by Mercury. You take any 4-stroke outboard that exists right now is better than any 2-stroke outboard that we used to have. It's just better. It is just freaking better. I'm in the fishing business. I ain't in the maintenance business. I ain't in the fixing business. I ain't in the make sure your gas is mixed. I ain't in the run this oil business. I'm not in the jetting. I'm not in the carbureting. I'm not in none of that business. I'm in the get my boat in the water and let's go freaking fishing business. That's what a 4-stroke is good for. They don't care if it's cold, hot. They don't care. Now, when they break, it's a lot bigger issue. But with that being said, if you found a boat with a older 2-stroke, yes, they still can be reliable. They still can be a good source of, particularly the lower horsepower two-stroke engines. Some people may argue that they're better. A little bit lighter. A lot of the lower horsepower engines are lighter than the same size four-stroke engines. So, for instance, this Mercury 30 horsepower, I don't know if you can see it behind me. I got a 30 horse on my John boat right there. If I had a 30 horse two-stroke, it'd be way lighter. I don't care because I'm in the fishing business, by God. I'm not in the motor. I'm not in the how much, how light. I'm not in the boxing business. So it's a little bit lighter. It is easier to fix. So when you get an older engine and it's out of warranty, if you got a two-stroke, you can probably replace a plug, a coil, a stator, probably on your own. Most of our engines, like what you see behind me, four-stroke, are going to be electronic fuel injection. And so you kind of need some equipment to fix them with most of the time, to diagnose them with. Most of your two-stroke outboards are going to be analog. What I mean by that is you just got to know, you got to be able to crank it up and tell what's wrong with it. Old school. You got to fix it by ear. Turn the key over and you hear it tick. You're like, oh, yeah, he needs a starter. Or you turn it over and you put it in gear and it goes in its body and you're going to say, oh, yeah, it needs a stator. Oh, yeah, it needs a coil. Or, yeah, it's just blown. Whatever the case may be. But, yes, two-strokes are way easier to fix. You had a larger horsepower two-stroke engine, like a one of my favorite engines is a Mercury 2.5, 150, 175, 250. I mean 200. Those blocks, the 2.5 Mercury block, is probably one of the most solid power plants that ever was created. Period. Mercury 2.5 blocks, and you can switch it over from carburetor to EFI. You can take the same block and make it this. You can take a carburetor 2.5 block, turn it into EFI if you needed to. You can just buy the parts for them. You can for a wide range of years. You can take parts from one engine to another. You can take flywheels and stators and ignition coils and reeds and reed blocks and all of these things and put them on that one engine, that one block. From I'm talking like literally almost 10, 15, 20 years. So that makes them easy to work on. You could blow that engine and probably be back up and running for $5,000. Maybe even cheaper. I'm gonna say $5,000, maybe like $2,500. You can get a whole new block, dressed out, ready to go. It's like $5,000, be up and running. So if I don't even know what it would cost if I blew my 250 out of warranty. Number one is it's done. You throw that in the trash. But I don't know what it will cost to repower that. Pretty much just get a new engine. But fortunately enough, I can count on my hand how many people have blown a 250 Pro XS. I can count. I'm not saying they don't blow. I'm just saying I can count on one hand how many I heard blow. When I first started fishing and I was running around fishing tournament trails, it was every day, every tournament that existed, somebody popped a power head. Somebody. I don't care. Then somebody's gonna say, "Oh, my Yokosuka Wiki, my Zuki Buki Duki, and my Yama Yama Yuki does this." Them suckers were blown up too. All of them were blowing. We ain't in that spot no more. When you're at the service trailer, you see gear cases go out, or you see some guy ran into something. You don't see that much anymore. But two-strokes are still reliable. They are easier to fix. I'm curious to hear what Alex says about maintenance, because there's what do? You try to make sure you have good fuel, and then how do you make sure? How do you make sure? I know people. Sometimes when we're talking about these things, we say things, and we don't even think about what we're saying. How do you make sure you get good fuel? I'm gonna go into the 7-Eleven down here. Hey, you guys got any good fuel in there? So I mean, like, how do you know? Fuel is the devil with two strokes with any engine. With oil, I don't know. Like, there's your gear case oil that you can change in your two stroke. What else should you do? I know people say run the ring free, run this, some type of additive. All those are gimmicks. Every single one of them is a gimmick. I don't care what anybody says. all the fuel additives that you add, that's just like getting your money. Don't even waste your money in there. It's not doing anything. It's not a whole lot you could do really to any of them. With your 4-stroke, I do try to change the oil in mine every 50 hours. I change the oil in my 250 Pro XS every 50 hours. Change my gear case oil every 50 hours. That's all I got for you. I'd be curious to hear. It's not like we have oil. It's not like we have air filters on our engines. So I'd be curious to hear what somebody else has for maintenance. I don't prolong high RPMs. Is that it? Thermostats, water pumps. Maybe that could be something. But I'd be curious to hear what somebody says about maintenance on these engines. I do grease. You got a few grease points on your engines, on your pivot points, on your trim. There's really not that much there. Gear case oil, grease your pivots. If you got a 4-stroke, you're going to change your oil. Is anybody saying anything in the chat? I would love to hear what else somebody else has to say. I'm going to look and see. You seen any questions, Mike, or any dialogue about that?
Not a whole lot, but I mean, if there was much to discuss, I mean, they just kind of be wrong. I think you hit everything.
Yeah, it's just not really that much. It's really not that much on any outboard. It's just really not that much. What is considered high RPM? Wide open, Tim. Most of your outboards are going to turn about the same WOT, somewhere between 55 to 6,000. I very rarely get mine over 4,500, to be honest with you. Unless we're in a tournament and blast off, I'll let her get up there. But I run around 3,000 to 4,500 all day long. So yeah, high RPMs. Probably just keep it lower for long periods of time. I'm not saying don't open it up, but just everywhere you go, just that might be a bad idea. But I know guys that run wide open, they just never have problems. So even that's kind of very subjective, I would say. But there's really not that much you can do to these motors.
I think the biggest problem the motors have is people hitting stuff like pipelines under the water in Louisiana and stumps and all that kind of stuff.
I hit a lot of stuff. Yeah, I've knocked off a lot of lower units, kegs, props. I've got over there in the corner of my shop over there, I've got probably 10 props. I probably have $10,000 worth of props over there that's ruined. Props are pretty high. It's $500 a piece. Back in the day, there's like $600 or $700. I guarantee I've got, I guess that's a little bit more. No, it was 500. That would be 20 props. I probably got 10 to 12 props over there.
Yeah, that seems to be far more prevalent issue with engines these days than the engines themselves and kind of however you operate them.
What happens is you hit something, you warp the prop shaft. You warp the prop shaft, and now you wear out the bearings and the seals in your gear case. Water enters your gear case, and water and gears and oil is bad. That's what happens.
Will Davis is asking hot footer hand throttle.
Hand throttle. Great question, Will Davis. We're about to start a forest fire on the internet right now. I know the people on Facebook, he's an idiot. He's going to be told, listen, and I'm telling you this, and I have a foot throttle in my boat because every time I sell my boat, people are programmed to think that you need a foot throttle, hand throttle. All right, go ahead and say it. Well, I want to be able to keep both hands on the wheel so I can drive. If you're driving fast enough to where you're out of control because you don't have both hands on the wheel, listen, you are driving too fast. Slow down. Slow down. Number 2, covering the throttle with your hand while driving is the safest thing that you can do because people will tell you that a boat doesn't have brakes. The brake is in your right hand with your trim button. And the ability to slow down and manipulate the boat with the trim is the safest thing you can do. And so now that you have one hand on the steering wheel and one hand covering your brake, makes the boat safer. Thirdly, it is much better on your back and your body to not have a foot throttle. When you're using a foot throttle, you have to sit down, and every single wave, all the weight goes into your spine. When you hit a wave, whether that be a boat wake or whether that be a wave, you can't control because you're trying to make sure you stay in the throttle. Having a hand throttle, I can now brace myself. I can sit nice and upright and brace myself. When I see myself about hitting the wave, I can take some of that weight, some of that brunt off of my spine by using a hand throttle and being able to brace myself with my feet. It forces you to slow down. The reason you don't like a foot throttle is because you want to drive like a freaking idiot with both hands on the throttle and you want to snatch and do all this crazy stuff. You need to slow down. You need to slow down. Not having a foot throttle forces you to slow down, and you need to cover. You need to cover. The most important thing that you have on a bass boat is your trim. It controls your speed. It controls how you slow down. It also controls how much steering manipulation you have. So if I just get out of the throttle running wide open and I never hit the trim, I still don't have any. I still can't manipulate the boat that good because the bow is up. And what controls the direction of the boat? The bow. You got to trim the boat down, get the keel in the water to be able to create direction. And if you trim your boat down, instead of having to turn this much to miss an object, I can turn literally just this much and get twice as much directional out of my boat. I don't like hot foots. I run one just because I have to. When I ran a Verado, you can swap over from hot foot to hand throttle. But I'm not a fan of them. It's hard on your back. It's more dangerous. I'm to the point I drive a boat a couple days a week, every week of my life for several years now. So I do have enough awareness to slow down, even though I do have a foot throttle. I'll come off pad. I kid you not. I will come off pad before I hit. If I see waves, especially if I have somebody in my boat, I will literally bring that sucker all the way down to an idle. Go across the wake, put it back on pad, and go. I hate getting beat to death by waves. Ain't got nothing to do. And I know here comes somebody else. Well, if you had a skeeter, you could go across it. If you had a bass cat, you could go across it. No, they all ride rough. A bump is a bump, god dang. And I don't like that stuff no more. Hand throttles. The only bass fishermen. It's the only bass fishermen that think you have to have a foot throttle. If you want one, go for it. If you want one, go for it. But I get sick of the narrative that thinks that the foot throttle is the savior. It's going to save boat wrecks or something like that. It is not. It is not.
You're going to get thrown out of the fishing community.
I want to be thrown out of the fishing community because most of them are
saying things like slow down in your bass boat. That's crazy talk, Brian.
Slow down. You got to slow down. I'm telling you got to slow down, and it is much safer with a hand throttle. You can also adjust the tension on your hand throttle to where when you take your hand off of it, it comes out. Kill switch, hand throttle for me all day. It's only bass fishermen. You'll never see a foot throttle in any type of larger boat. It's only bass fishermen. Only bass fishermen. Did I ever answer the question? Oh, yeah, that was just Will Davis. He had this question about that. Is that the only one that popped up? Because these next couple were pretty good, too. I got 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, that's the only ones I've seen that were related to the boats.
Okay. All right. This is TC Lay. Is that your name for real? My guy, TC Lay. He said, who else had their water temps jumped up this weekend? My local Poto's water temp went from 45 degrees on Tuesday morning to 54 this morning. Also, the bite turned on and the bass moved up super shallow, burning lipless and 2 foot of water parallel with the remaining weed lines was getting smoked. TC, I'd love a little bit more context. So he's talking about the water temperature warmed up. Obviously, man, it was springtime here. Let me know what the weather was like where y'all are. It was springtime here in South Carolina today. It was close to 70 if it wasn't 70 after having like teens for high about 2 weeks ago in snow. For he says it turned a bite on where he is. I know some guys fished some tournaments this past weekend. I think Tim fished the tournament. I think it was pretty tough for him. I think Nathan fished the tournament as well. I don't think it was that great for him either, as far as the bite goes. A lot of times, in my experience here in the South, I want to know where you are, TC. Where you are. If you're in Florida, that makes sense. If you're in the South, the other South, because there's Florida South. That fishing down there does its own thing, and then there's everybody else's fishing. Florida fishing is not the same as our fishing. Sometimes when it warms up that first time, the bite gets not that good. In some kind of weird way, the colder it stays, the better the fishing is. I know that sounds so counterintuitive, but usually it's better the colder and more stable it stays cold. When it warms up, it typically isn't that good, because what happens is it puts the fish, they like transition. You got all this warm water at the top, and they just kind of rise up in the water column and just sit there and just. You ever seen an old dog lay in the grass on a cold morning, a cold afternoon, or I guess it's a warm afternoon after it's been cold. It's been like freezing the day before, and then it gets back warm, and they just lay out in the yard with the belly up like he's dead. That's kind of what the bass do. They lay up in the water column about 5 foot from the surface like they're dead. And they ain't biting nothing. So typically when it's colder, they bite a little bit better. Now it will eventually get better, but at first it kind of sucks a little bit. That's been my experience. Y'all let me know what it's been for you. He said it was that has to be Florida, because we hadn't had enough time for our water temperature jump. That's 10 degrees. He went from 45 to 54. It's not, 9 degrees, but 9 is 10 basically. So I'm betting that's shallow water. That makes sense for shallow water ponds, shallow water lakes like in Florida, where it's probably a max depth of 10 foot. I could see where that would turn the fish on, probably starting to move up the spawn and ready to go. I'd love to hear where you're at with that one, TC. Let's see what our next one is. We got that one. We got that one. This is a great one. This is from Anthony Triolo. Anthony is asking, he says, "Hey, Brian, do you live stream any of your tournaments? That would be cool to come here and tune in." We've been thinking about this a bunch, Anthony. So I do want to try to live stream some tournaments. I'm going to test it out here in the app. So I did get like I can't think of the internet stuff. Starlink. I got Starlink. Yeah, I got Starlink, and I want to see if it'll work. The biggest thing we're trying to stream with fishing is internet service. Obviously, cell phone reception is next to, it's not consistent enough on most of our lakes. But I do have Starlink, and it is a mobile. I have the Starlink mobile. So I could potentially be able to fish and stream, which I do want to do some streaming while fishing, period, this spring with you guys here in the app. So instead of drawing on a board what I'm talking about, instead of coming back here and trying to do it the way that I've been doing it, I'm trying to figure out a way that I can stream and teach while on the water. So I'm going to practice it there first, and if it works good, we may try streaming a few tournaments. I have to make sure that's all good with with Major League Fishing. I think it is. It shouldn't be a problem, but we may work on that. We'll see if it works. That's a great question. I hope it does. If nothing else, I really want to be able to teach through the app, through on the water a little more often. I tried a little bit last spring on my phone. And it's just the service is just not consistent enough to stay, to stay plugged up. Let's see if I got any more. We get on Kiwi. This is a guy. Who is this? I cut off the name. Tanner Allison. This is Tanner Allison 4 days ago. He said, "Hey, B-Lat, so I pre-fished a good bit for the BFL on Kiwi last Saturday and had located good schools of bait fish and bass in the backs of some creeks. When Saturday came around, I figured they might have pushed up with the cold front that came through, and I was right. I ended up fishing with the bait on the points leading into the coves. There were bait fish everywhere, and the bass were always right below them, busting. But I never could get them caught. Threw a jerkbait, underspin, crankbait to meet rig, and I threw worm on the bottom with about 20 foot of water with visibility nearing 10 foot. I'm just wondering, what can I do different to try and get these fish to commit to one of my lures? Any suggestions I could try with that scenario? So it sounds like he went out and fished. Did it get cold or warmer? I can't remember. He said Saturday came around. I forget they might have moved the person. Anyway, he was practicing for a tournament. He located some fish. I'm assuming the way I'm reading this, he found fish using his electronics, but could not get them to bite. Okay. How do you know they were bass? That'll be my first question, because it said you threw all the things that I can think of. Underspin, you say threw a crankbait, a jerkbait, and a Demiki rig. And you say you didn't get them. They didn't respond. Can you confirm that they were bass and not trout or not something else? That's the first thing. Secondly, if I can't get them to bite after I've spent my time with them, I wipe them from my memory and I move on to the next thing. Just marking fish for me means nothing, not that much for me. I'm not gonna say it doesn't mean, I shouldn't say it means nothing, but it doesn't carry enough weight for me. Maybe since I found them on points leading into coves, just as you mentioned, maybe I'll go to another point leading into a cove to see if there's fish on those. I keep moving since maybe fish are using that specific depth and area, but I'm not going to waste time in that. Just marking, keep in mind the fish ain't got nowhere to be but in the water. So marking them is only, that's just a very tiny part of the portion. Lake Kiwi is absolutely slap chop full of fish. Ain't nobody kept a fish in Kiwi since the 80s, I bet. So I'm going to keep moving. I'm just going to keep looking for something that's better. Knowing what I know about our area and what we've had for weather for the last few weeks, fishing's probably not been that easy. And I can tell you what I always did with Kiwi. A lot of these lakes have progressed to something that I'm not familiar with now. I'll be honest, in the last 5 years, I haven't tournament fished. I know longer than that. Last 10 years, I haven't tournament fished any of our lakes. Me going out and making videos, me going out and showing you how to use different techniques and different gear on our lake is not the same as tournament fishing. What I'm about to say is how it used to be when I was competitively fishing at home. In January, I stopped fishing deep on Lake Kiwi. Once that water gets very, very, very cold, I don't fish deep anymore. It's better to fish deep as the water temperature is dropping to its lowest point. And then once it bottoms out, which it should be close to that, it's about as cold as it's going to get for all years right now, I'll go back shallow. On that water at Kiwi, it's not as bad at Hartwell for some reason, but at Kiwi, once it gets in the 40s, trying to catch a fish 20, 30, 40 foot deep is actually pretty hard. They don't move a lot, and to draw fish to your bait at that depth, you got to be so precise. You almost got to put it in front of his face, unless it's one of those odd days. So with that being said, when it gets cold, I actually go shallower. I know that sounds stupid, but those fish are easier for me to catch once the water temperature has bottomed out. And so I would always fish pockets and coves. There's nothing special about it at all. I stopped fishing deep. If I had one place I could jump to in the morning and just catch a couple real fast, I would do it. But for the most part, I stayed out. I stayed shallow. Jerk bait, small swim baits, even a jig, Alabama rig would be a good bait to throw around docks. Because now you're targeting fish that are in an aggressive state of mind. They're not just setting in 30, 40, 50 foot of water just suspended just because they're suspended. A fish that's under a dock is a predator mindset fish. He's under there looking for cover and looking to strike. He's mad. He's a gangster. So I would target those fish because I hit the target. If there's nothing there, I move to the next target. Where when you're fishing deep, there's really not a target. You're just, like you said, you're just seeing fish. And if they're not reacting, there's nothing you can do. His mindset isn't always into a reactive mode when they're out deep. That's my little bit of game that I'll share with you about specifically about Lake Kiwi. 10 years ago, information, a lot of stuff's evolved. Okay. All right, we'll take this last one right here, Michael, unless you got something else. This one's from Daniel Page. Daniel says, I've got a topic I'd like for the SUF family to discuss. How should anglers approach joining a club? He says a whole bunch of other stuff, but that's what we need to know. He wants to know, how can you join a club? This one is pretty easy. We didn't have this when I was growing up. I was kind of grandfathered into a club since my dad was already fishing tournaments and in a club, so I didn't have to try. I already knew the people. But especially if you're new to the area, how would you find a club? Where would you go? How do you, who do you call? I would go to Google or Facebook, any kind of social, and Google fishing clubs in your area, or look for the lake that's closest to you and go on Facebook, Lake Hartwell Bass Fishing Club. And you're going to send them a message. I'd like to fish in your club. What do I need to do? What are the dues? Are you fishing co-angler? Do you have your own boat? What's the case? What's your deal? All right. You ask them that. You show up to the ramp. You pay your dues and you pay your entry fees. It's that simple. World of bass fishing is pretty embracive. The barrier to entry is actually like really easy. You don't have to do a lot. You don't need to know nothing. You know, just figure out a club that you can join. We have awesome tools now. The internet, social media. Type in bass clubs in your area. Find one that looks like one that you want to fish. Now you can even go and see the people in that club. So, man, they're like a bunch of old guys. I don't know if I want to be in that club. But, man, they're like a bunch of young guys. I don't want to be in there with them idiots. You can pick who you want to fish with. Send them a message. Ask them when the schedule, when you can show up. And you can just pay your entry fee and dues, and you'll be in there. It's really as simple as that. Another option you have now is like with my tournaments, I put on online tournaments. So everybody in the country can fish. No matter if you got a boat, you fish from a pond, you can fish from a lake, kayak, it don't matter. You can fish my tournament, the Straight Up Fishing Classics. This year we're going to start, I think, in April. We'll do June. And you can fish on your own time. It's a month-long tournament. You fish on your own time, after work, on the weekends, before work, whatever the case may be. So you don't have to show up a dedicated time. Same thing, everybody else on the weekend, and be forced to do that. You can just fish when you have time to. That's another option that I didn't even know about until a few years ago. So you've got options and tools, but it's very easy. There's very little red tape that you'll have to go through to get started in tournament fishing. In the app, I do have some, and we're gonna go a little deeper into this later this spring. In the app, I do have some workshops about learning how to fish tournaments. Type in maybe Joe and Nania or how to get started in the first tournament. Remember, the app, there's searchable content on the app. Whatever you're dealing with, whatever question you have, type it in the search bar. I can guarantee you there's probably a video there. And if there's not, you bring it to the community section or ask BLAT and we'll get a video about it. That's what it's here for. That's the whole purpose of the app. Can't get that on YouTube. Kind of maybe a little bit. But like I can get it to you like pretty quick. pretty quick if we don't have it. But I think at this point, we probably got it somewhere in the app. And it's pretty detailed. And we can talk back and forth about it, just like what we're doing tonight. That's all the questions I got. I'll go back to the chat and see if I got anything popping over there. Yeah, our tournament is hosted by Fishing Chaos. But club fishing is easy. So Will Davis says, "Can we do a live on reading topo maps? Y'all help him out. Somebody send him a link to our live sonar thing. Make sure you. So Josh, any of that stuff, trust me. Type it in the search bar on the main page. When you go to browse on the app, scroll down, go and search, and just put. I don't know if we put topo maps in there, but there's a whole at least an hour and a half live on map reading. I dedicated a whole session to maps. So, and that's recent. That's up recent. Any of the things that you guys have questions about, I can guarantee you there is a workshop lesson breakdown on that particular subject. So yeah, y'all help him out. Somebody I know Tron helped somebody out earlier today that was asking about sponsors. Somebody said, "How do I get sponsors?" We did a whole workshop on sponsorship. So send that to him if you can. I think that's all.
One I think rather quick question on the boats. Would you rather do your own maintenance or take it to a shop?
All right. So the question is, would I rather do my own maintenance on my boat or take it to a shop? That's going to be subjective on what you can do. What can you do? I don't take mine to a shop. I do. There's like I mentioned, there's not that much to do. I can change oil. It's like changing bath water. If you can run your own bath water, you probably can change oil. So if you're that guy, if you're him, then I don't see any reason to. But if you're not him, take it to your dealer. And you know what I mean if you're not him. If you're not her, don't do it. Don't change your oil. You know exactly what I mean. Chances are, if you're asking that question, you need to take it to a dealer. Because it's not that much. You're going to change the oil in your gear case. You can Google, you can put that in YouTube and find 1,700 videos on how to change the gear case oil in your specific horsepower engine, almost to your serial number. When that little 30 horse, I was trying to figure out, it doesn't have a flush. I was disappointed in that. It doesn't have the quick flush to flush the salt water out of. And I looked in and I found on YouTube they don't have one on that particular engine. So you're only going to change your gear case oil. If you got a 4-stroke oil, you're going to change engine oil and your gear case oil. And then you're going to grease. There's like 3 or 4 pivot points on there that you're going to grease. I mean, that's all you got. This literally all you got. So until it breaks, I would just do that unless you don't feel comfortable doing that. And that's okay. Take it to your dealer. That would be my suggestion on that. All right. So is that all we got today? Let's see. Lake breakdown. Yep, lake breakdown. So Nathan Sipes, about the maps. It's on lake breakdowns. That's one of them. And then we also did it when we did the sonar class. It'll be on the sonar and mapping go together. Like, it's just like making a hamburger without a bun. You got to have those two together. All right. I think that's all. We're out of the Chaos app. Good evening, everyone. Ricky Taylor. Okay. So if nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Sorry I messed up on the schedule on my end. We'll reschedule this kayak live. Y'all make sure you're there. I think we have another live on Friday, which would be interesting because I do have somewhere I'm supposed to be Friday, but we're going to end up doing it. I'm actually, Level Rods is opening a new brick and mortar location, and I'm supposed to do like a meet and greet there. So maybe we will tune in from there via my phone and do the live there somehow.
Uh,
What do y'all think about that?
How's the
What's
Wednesday
that,
night
Michael?
stuff going? The community lives.
Yeah, we got the community lives. Make sure you tune in on that Wednesday. I'm not sure if we have one this Wednesday or not. Destiny will post in there. It should be in the round table. So when you go down to on the community section, I'm gonna go to it now. So you go to the community section. When it says channels, it says round table. Click on round table and we'll post a link there. The round table is sort of like what we do now, but it's your chance to talk. Like for me, I'm just here and you can only see me and I'm the only one talking. On the round table, it's literally all of us sitting around talking, sharing, explaining, asking questions. We can see all of us at once. I did it last weekend. I think we just talk about mental, just the mental side of fishing, being intentional about our thoughts. Chris may be doing the one this weekend talking about nutrition and how you need to eat when you're on the water. I've been with some people, y'all eat terrible. You got to let that beef jerky go. Them sausage biscuits. It ain't the best way for you to eat when you're out there on the water. So Chris and Destiny are power lifters. So if there's anybody that knows about calories and how you need to eat so you can think clearer, it's them. So he was going to host about that. He's just been busy where he works now, so he had to kind of come in late. So I just took over last weekend. But the Wednesday nighters are fun. It's way more laid back, way less formal. It's just kind of like what the app is for. It's just for us to hang out and get to talk to each other. So Wednesday night,
You're
8
so
p.m.
formal.
What's that? Yeah, I'm
Because
very
you're
formal
so
and straight
formal.
legged. Yeah, I'm very formal, bro. Like I bring it. Y'all seen my suit and tie. You seen what I wear. All right, is that all we have here? Let me see what else. If I had any other questions, let me get back to my.
I think you got most of them.
Got them all.
I screen grabbed, I think, a couple early, but
Okay. All right, I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. Appreciate you guys. If you got any questions, you got anything you would like to have some dedicated lives on, hit us up in the app and I'll work on it for this spring. Make sure I'm going to send you a link to where you RSVP for the retreat because I do need to know if you're coming. I do need to know you're coming, so I save the seat and don't sell your seat. All right. Thank you. I should. One more thing. Two more things. So I'm going to be fishing. I already reached out to him, and he did say he could go. He's not on live tonight. I can't say his last name. His name is Tom. And I'm going to tell you how I picked out Tom. I looked in the app, and Tom had the most watch time hours out of anybody by like 3 times. I was like, man, I want to fish with this guy. Let me see. I'm going to try to say his name. I just got to find it. Right quick.
while you're looking
His
at that,
name is
Christopher Bowman asking about how long the roundtables last. I think they're just lasting as long as everybody wants to hang out. So it's pretty.
Jump in
You
there.
can come and go.
Yeah, come and go. If it keeps going and you're done, just go. You don't have to stay. But last week we did about 45, 50 minutes. 8 o'clock Wednesday night. But you're there's no pressure. If you pop in for 10 minutes and have to leave, then go. It's okay. There's no problem. Nobody's gonna be like, man, I can't believe he left us in our live, bro. We were trying to do a round table. Dude walked out on us. I might even be leading one night. I think I left them while I was leading and I went. I had a long day and I just ate and it's time to get people in the bed. I think I left them last time. Tom Spulajaric is gonna fish with me. I reached out to him. He said he could go, so we just got to figure it out because he's coming from live. All right, here's the other gift. If you're new to the app, people that are already in the app, you already know. SUF, was it SUF School? What's the discount code, y'all? Put it in the chat. What's the discount code for SUF members? Put it in the chat. I can't remember it.